It was one of those perfect, lazy Saturdays in Cedar Grove Estates. The kind the HOA brochures promised in glossy photos, but never delivered in real life. The black SUV crawled down our street like a shark that had already tasted blood, tires crunching on the pristine asphalt that Vicky Lang, our beloved HOA president, liked to remind everyone cost extra dues to keep just so. It stopped dead in front of Grandpa Arthur Morgan's house, engine idling like a threat. Two men stepped out in matching tactical vests that screamed HOA Compliance Enforcement in sterile white letters, boots gleaming like they'd never touched real dirt. The tall one with the clipboard didn't even knock. He just pointed straight at Grandpa Art rocking slowly on the porch, mug of coffee in his lap, eyes soft and distant the way they'd been for years. "Mr. Arthur Morgan," he announced loud enough for every neighbor to hear through their open windows. "Due to your documented declining mental faculties and repeated violations of Sections 17B and 21A, the HOA has officially classified you as a neighborhood liability. We're here to serve notice of potential conservatorship proceedings and an immediate lien on this property, for the safety and property values of everyone else, of course." The stocky one with the buzz cut smirked and kicked at my little brother Leo's chalk dinosaur on the sidewalk. "Cute drawing, kid. Be a shame if something happened to your toys or your grandpa's ability to stay here." Grandpa Art just blinked slowly, humming that tuneless little melody he always did when the world got too loud. To the whole block, he looked exactly like what Vicky Lang had spent 2 years painting him as: harmless, confused, a sad old man whose mind had slipped into fog after Grandma passed. Sarah, my mom, froze in the doorway, apron still dusted with flour from her apple pie. I lowered the hedge trimmers, heart already hammering. Everyone in Cedar Grove knew Vicky's game. She ran the HOA like her personal fiefdom, slapping $500 fines for grass 1 millimeter too tall, for flags flown on the wrong days, for bird feeders that weren't aesthetically approved. But lately she'd zeroed in on Grandpa. His hedges were unkempt. His little metal eagle statue on the porch post was unauthorized political expression. And worst of all, his occasional forgetfulness made him a liability under some obscure clause she'd pushed through last year. The tall enforcer shoved the clipboard under Grandpa's nose. "Sign it, Pops. Makes everything easier. President Lang says she's only doing this for the community." The buzzcut guy chuckled. "Yeah, we serve notices. Real important work. Not like you'd remember what that feels like." Grandpa Art's thumb stopped rubbing the rim of his world's best grandpa mug. Just a tiny movement, but I caught it. The men didn't. They were too busy enjoying the performance for the neighbors, now peeking from behind curtains. Vicky's voice suddenly floated from the SUV. She'd been sitting in the back the whole time, of course, too important to get her designer sandals dirty. "Gentlemen, please be gentle. We're not monsters. We just want Mr. Morgan to get the help he clearly needs before his condition affects all of our home values." She smiled that sugary smile the whole neighborhood knew was pure poison. That was when the air changed. Grandpa Art stood up. Not the slow, creaky rise of an old man. One fluid motion, like something ancient waking up. The porch chair stopped rocking. His voice came out low, crisp, nothing like the foggy mutter everyone expected. "You boys ever serve something that actually mattered?" The tall one laughed right in his face. "We serve notices, old man. Now sign before we—" He never finished. Grandpa Art's hand shot out, intercepting the wrist holding the clipboard in an open palm strike that made a sharp, wet snap. The clipboard flew, shattering against the porch post. Before the guy could scream, Art twisted, using the man's own momentum to slam him face first into the very hedges he'd come to complain about. The second enforcer lunged for his taser. Too slow. Art stepped inside the reach, locked the elbow, and with one brutal torque the shoulder popped like a champagne cork. The man howled and went down hard, landing right on Leo's chalk dinosaur. 5 seconds. Maybe 6. The street went dead silent except for the bees that had been buzzing in Mom's lavender. Grandpa Art stood over the two groaning bodies, breathing steady, eyes clear as winter glass. He nudged the tall one's vest with his loafer. "Funny thing about liabilities," he said quietly. "Sometimes they bite back." Sarah's phone was already out, filming. Neighbors poured onto lawns, phones up. Vicky Lang's face in the SUV window went from smug to ghost white in real time. By the time Sheriff Miller arrived, the video was already uploading. Hashtag HOA Karen meets her match started trending before the handcuffs even clicked. But that was only the beginning. Vicky wasn't done. Not by a long shot. She spent the next 3 days flooding the neighborhood group chat with concerned posts about safety risks and protecting our investments. Fines doubled. An emergency HOA meeting was called for Friday night. Anonymous letters showed up claiming Grandpa was a danger to children. Vicky even tried to get child services involved over Leo's neglected chalk art. Every night her black SUV cruised past our house slow enough to make the point. Grandpa Art didn't yell. He didn't post back. He just sat on the porch every evening, rocking, humming, eyes half closed like always. But I saw the difference now. The fog was gone. He was watching, counting, remembering everything. On Thursday night, he pulled me into the garage after dinner. The old footlocker I'd never seen open was on the workbench. Inside, faded folders, an old leather holster, a stack of encrypted drives. I wasn't always the guy who forgot where he put his keys, Leo, he said, voice low. For 30 years I trained people, ghost investigators, whistleblowers, the kind governments and corporations pay to disappear. They call me the shepherd. My job was teaching them how to walk into the dark, gather proof, and come home without anyone ever knowing they were there. He tapped a folder labeled Janus Protocol. Vicky Lang and her lawyer Marcus Cross. Marcus was my best student once. Went rogue. Now he helps people like Vicky skim dues, rig bids for developers, bury evidence. They want this house because it sits on the only parcel they need for their next luxury build. And they figured the senile grandpa would be easy to push out. He smiled that small, dangerous smile again. They were wrong. The next night the power cut at 11:47 p.m. Streetlights died. 3 more shadows moved across the lawn. Vicky's second wave, compliance officers, with real tasers this time. They never made it past the front walk. I was upstairs with binoculars like Grandpa instructed. Look for what shouldn't be there, he'd said. When the first guy hit the invisible fishing line tripwire stretched across the steps, he face-planted into the garden hose Grandpa had rigged to spray canola oil at ankle height. The second one slipped, arms windmilling, straight into the old microwave Grandpa had wheeled out and jury-rigged to blast an EMP burst when the back door opened, scrambled their radios into static. The third tried the basement window and got greeted by the furnace Grandpa had accidentally overpressurized all afternoon. One backfire of ignited gas later, and the guy stumbled out screaming, clothes smoking, looking like he'd been attacked by suburban hellfire. Grandpa stood in the dark living room the whole time, calm as Sunday morning. When the last man was down, he just patted my shoulder. Confusion is our friend, Leo. Always has been. By sunrise, the whole neighborhood knew. Vicky called an emergency meeting for that very night, demanding order restored. She showed up in full pearls and power suit armor, Marcus Cross at her side, smug, tailored, the picture of expensive corruption. The hall was packed. Phones recording. Vicky took the podium, voice dripping fake concern. Friends, we cannot allow one unstable resident to terrorize our peaceful community. Arthur Morgan clearly needs professional care, and if the board must take control of his property for the greater good. Grandpa Art walked in through the back door carrying nothing but a small Zippo lighter and a single manila folder. The room went silent. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. Victoria, he said, you always did love community standards. Especially the ones that let you siphon $37,000 in maintenance fees into your personal account last quarter. Marcus here helped you hide it, same way I taught him to hide trails 15 years ago. He flicked the Zippo open. The tiny flame danced. Janus Protocol was never a file. It was a promise between shepherds. 2 voices. 1 shared memory. Marcus and I just changed the activation code 10 minutes ago. Every single investigator I ever trained now has your bank records, your developer kickbacks, your little side deals. They're already forwarding everything to the state attorney general. Marcus lunged. Same mistake his hired thugs made. Grandpa sidestepped, caught the collar, and slammed him face first into the podium. Wood cracked. Marcus slid down in a heap, designer suit ruined. Vicky's face collapsed into something ugly and real. You crazy old. Liability. Grandpa finished for her, voice soft. Maybe. But I was never the one stealing from neighbors to fund spa days and luxury condos. The sheriff stepped in right on cue. Someone had tipped him off. Handcuffs clicked on Vicky and Marcus while the entire neighborhood watched live on 3 different streams. Fines were reversed by Monday. The board was dissolved. New rules were voted in by actual residents. A week later, the white roses bloomed in the garden bed the neighbors planted where Vicky's enforcers had crushed Mom's petunias. Grandpa sat on the porch again, rocking, but the fog never came back. He still hummed. Still forgot where he put his reading glasses. But now when he looked at us, his eyes were clear and sharp and full of quiet pride. He was still Grandpa. He was also still the shepherd. And Cedar Grove Estates finally felt like home again. So tell me, was Grandpa Arthur wrong to hide who he really was for all those years just to live a quiet life? Or was the real criminal the HOA Karen who weaponized every rule to destroy anyone who got in her way? Who was truly the liability to the neighborhood?